bit delayed there. Hello and welcome to Mann's Model Moments, Midweek Model Meet. It's been a while, so apologies for everybody for delays. Past couple of weeks, there's been a lot been going on, and haven't managed to get into the recording studio. I call it that; it's my conservatory. One, because it was very hot here, and the temperature in here gets really unbearable, like 40 plus degrees when it's really sunny. Despite the fact I've got a shade and stuff, and aircon, it still can't cope with direct sun. So that's one reason, just for the fuzziness. This background also, the screen chroma filter doesn't particularly like the lighting in here. I don't know whether it's too bright for it, so that it like takes any shadows out. It's really hard to fine tune. So I may have a little mess with that as the sun gradually goes down, because as it goes down, that will change. There we go. Let's try that. I'm a little bit more in the corner, but anyway, good evening, everybody. Good to see you all. Let's just have a little look. I've seen a lot of our usual suspects. We've got the Little Things Junkie. We've got Casey. We've got Adrian. We've got Aaron. Excuse me. We've got Julian. We've got World War II Scale Models Dave. Let's see. We've got Philip Pascoe. Good to see you guys. We've got Carl. We've got Phil. We've got John Alec. We have Drew. Just going down. We've got David. Howard. And Steve. I think that brings us up to and John Christmas as well. Good evening, everybody. So I have no particular schedule or plans for tonight. I just wanted to talk. Well, I wanted to get streaming again, and also give you a bit of an update on a few things. And the first one of which is a little bit on Airfix and Humbrol. I didn't get to do a Tuesday talk yesterday. I was going to talk a little bit about this, but you may have seen, I think Moss did a video on it. Airfix are bringing 4 kits, 4 starter kits to Aldi and Lidl. And as I commented on Moss's video, I don't think it's a good thing. So these are revised box art, so they kind of got very simplistic, almost like screen printing, the block colours, like yellow, blue, white, red, green, just like solid colours. Very reminiscent of very early, like 1950s type kits. And they're doing a questionable selection, let's put it this way. One of them, the only one I think that's worthwhile, is the Aston Martin DB5. That's I think it's 2016. Maybe even be 2020, that tooling. It's a recent tooling anyway. Really nice kit, Aston Martin DB5. Then they've also released, or are releasing, the Gazelle, 72nd scale Gazelle. Not a good kit. The JMB Land Rover in 76 scale, which seems bizarre to me given that they themselves released a starter kit Land Rover very recently. So why not do that one? Again, these are starter kits in Aldi and Lidl, meant for people, meant to expand the hobby. So really important, and I've said, others have said, really important that first experience that people get is a good one. And the starter kits that they've had in Aldi and Lidl before have been decent for the most part. They've had the Airfix Spitfire Mark 1, the ME109E, the Sherman Firefly, Tiger, and a whole bunch of others. But recent starter kits, or more recent kits, like 2012 onwards. The Gazelle is an old kit. It used to be one of the kits that Airfix used to bring to the sort of come and build events that they did at model shows. I remember one of my daughters doing one, and it wasn't great. It really wasn't. It was difficult for her to do, frustrating, and never got out of the box after it went home. They also used to do the Hawker Hunter, which was a much easier build. And then the other kit they're doing is the Comet, the de Havilland Comet, which is a 1950s tooling, and it's terrible. The fuselage sides are actually not evenly matched. I've built it, and it was as a modeler, and it wasn't good. And as a modeler, yeah, you can make something of it, but this is not where they're directed. And I just think it's indicative of, let's say, the new paradigm that we're seeing from Humbrol in, let's call them the post-Dale days. I think this is the start of the decline, frankly, which is very sad to see. And one of the other pieces that kind of I came to it, and the reason I'm looking here is because I'm looking at a file that I have, which was sent to us as retailers at the beginning of the year, with some expected dates on. And I can tell you, we are waiting for kits that were announced at the beginning of the year, what people were really excited for, that still have not come out. So slated for, and we all know there can be delays and stuff, and obviously the Iranian situation has not helped, but I wonder if that's all that's there, because the Olvis Stalwart, the Mark II with the limber, we were supposed to have back in April. We were supposed to have the Jaguar in May, and the Saracen in May as well. Things that are slated for this month, we have the Canberra and the JU52. So, and then of course the Phantom, it was slated originally for July. So if we're already 2 months behind, that doesn't bode well for the rest of the year for Airfix. And I think with Hornby's existing financial problems, and the fact that they seem to be throwing out these old kits in, these weird boxes, who they're meant to appeal to, I'm not sure. I really don't think is a good sign. So it's really sad to see. But I'd really be interested in what you guys think as well. So please, do let me know in the chat. Let me just have a little look. Just going. Howard said, sounds like they are bunging out Dross. Will they be in Sports Direct as well? Sounds like Mr. Ashley is in full command. Yeah, and that's kind of one of my... that was my feeling when Dale and others were made redundant, was this feels like the hand of Mike Ashley reaching out and trying to commoditize model kits in a way that just doesn't work for this industry. And if you think of when they last did this sort of thing, it was what got them the bad name in the 80s into the 90s of bagging any old crap kit from the past, and putting it in a new box and selling it. They've spent over a decade now building up their reputation, trying to get away from that old image, creating new tooling, loads of investment. In the last 10 years under Dale's, well, he wasn't there for 10 years, but under the last sort of 5 years, I think he's been there, directing, what Airfix have been doing within Hornby. I think has been really good. And there's obviously criticisms within there, like the QC and stuff, but that's a continuous and Hornby related issue. It's not unique to Airfix. This is part of the group's problem. And this doesn't feel like a positive move for Airfix. Julian says, to be honest, as a starter kit, I thought the 143rd Land Rover was small enough for the subject. 176, in my opinion, is way too small for a beginner to tackle. Well, and not only that, Julian, it's a very good point. I think 143rd scale is a good scale, and they're doing the DB5, so why not have the Land Rover as an alternative, 176 is fine if they go together. Those old J&B kits were not starter kits, let's put it like that. you know, Revell, and I'll come to Revell in a second, Revell could bang out the Matchbox kits as starter kits because although they're old, they were very good. I mean, they were way ahead of their time in the 80s, but they go together really well. You know, they're easy to put together. And I think that's one of the critical pieces for a starter kit, is it has to be easy. And just staying on Revell there just for a second, I got a load of kits from Revell a couple of weeks ago in the shop, including a lot of the old 176 scale kits. And guess what? They're now putting them out at like £9. So they're recognizing that actually we're not going to get top dollar for these kits, but that's not where they belong. They belong in the, you know, reasonable price so that a modeler can pick them up and have a bit of a retro experience, or you can spend some money on them and like bring them up to 2026 standards, or you can use them in wargaming, or a brand new modeler can get a hold of them for, you know, for not very much money and get engaged in the hobby. I think that's a really good thing to do. I've praised Airfix for their starter kits, you know, and that whole mentality, if you like. And now for them to seem to be going into bad habits, you know, into old habits, is really disappointing. Where Revell are really, it's like we can't have two of the big companies, big Western companies, be good at the same time. It's like as one rises, you know, one has to be down here, and then as that started to go up, the other one's coming down. So, I mean, speaking of Revell, I really liked what they did with the Project Harrier. You know, Luke reached out and engaged a whole bunch of us. He didn't tell me there was an embargo on the time till 5:15, which is why my video went out at about 10 past. Which it wasn't intentional. It was just he forgot to tell me, and I didn't see his message until like the Thursday. So yeah, apologies other creators. It wasn't a deliberate attempt to snipe you. It was generally just miscommunication on both sides. But really good that they're doing that, and also that is permeating other areas. It's not just Luke who's doing it in isolation. He is part of a team, and that team is disseminating out and starting to infiltrate like the military with the Matchbox stuff, the cars. They're getting the old Matchbox cars and they're selling them at really reasonable prices, like 12 to 15 sort of pounds. And you know, they just released about a week ago their second update, Project Harrier, where great interviews with Chris and I forget the other guy's name, Horatio, I think it is, doing the Pegasus engine. You know, really good insight into the whole process, and I think that sort of level of transparency and openness is really welcome. I mean, I found it interesting. I hope you guys who saw it found it interesting. If you haven't seen it, have a look. There's a post on the channel, or if you just search and look on the Revell channel, you'll find it there. But yeah, it does seem that they are now ascendant in that way. Whereas Airfix, I've not heard anything from Airfix. My Hornby rep keeps sending me stuff about Scale Electric, which we know is going. Hornby Railways, which he knows I'm not interested in either of these, but he sends me the stuff anyway. And I haven't had a single Airfix thing for, I don't know, it seems like a couple of months. Which, you know, in business, absence does not make the heart grow fonder. Absence makes the heart forget. You know, we are bombarded with so much information, and there are so many kit manufacturers producing really good stuff. It's easy to forget about something if it's not present. You know, if the companies aren't communicating, if they're not showing you stuff. Mystery Box Nick is in. Good to see you. Paul, good to see you too. Greg, who also says, do you think the Saracen launch was somewhat muted? Yeah, I've heard nothing. You know, it's not out yet, as far as I know. I've received no notifications about any of my orders. Just check, just in case something has happened. Oh, it says it is in stock. Oh, why haven't I got mine? Well, there's a turnip. Why hasn't that come out? I pre-ordered like a bunch of those. Well, there we go, live. What the hell are they doing? Yeah, that's really odd. Okay, so in that case, has the... I just need to check now. Stalwart. Stalwart Limber is still pre-order, even though that was supposed to come out before. Okay, and then let's see, Jaguar. Jaguar T2 still pre-order. Okay, so it just seems it's the Saracen. When did that come out then? Literally, I have them on pre-order and I've heard nothing. How weird. So in that, as you mentioned, Greg, yeah, it's a bit underwhelming. I mean, there wasn't anything, any announcement as far as I saw. I get emails both from Hornby Direct and I also get them from the trade side. And I can't think that I've seen anything. Let me just check. Because I get a lot of emails. It could have got buried. No, the last thing I had was the 9th of April, talking about the Prince Eugen HMS Suffolk and the hovercraft. That was the last communication I had on Airfix from Humbrol. As far as I can see, let's look at the trade news. Yep. April was the last ones I had. So they haven't communicated for an entire month. Well, it's more than that now. It's almost 2 months, isn't it? For trade. Airfix Trade News, 15th of the 4th, 26 is the last one I had. Before that, 13th of the 4th, 30th of the 3rd, 25th of the 3rd, 11th of the 3rd, 25th of the 2nd, 17th of the 2nd. That just shows you the frequency of how often I was getting trade news stuff before. So it's once a week, once every couple of weeks. And I've not now had anything for 2 months. I mean, what does that tell you about the company? That it isn't communicating with its retail trade network, such as it is. I mean, they do not care about their retail network, obviously. But okay. Just let me scroll up because I've come down and okay. So people have received their Saracens. Where are my pre-orders? My God, I apologise for anybody who has pre-ordered the Saracen through me. This is genuinely the first time I've heard about it, and I should have them in the shop. What's going on? That is ludicrous. So if you do have any comments or questions, guys, please put comment in capitals or question in capitals or QQQ or CCC just to help me pick out your comments from the general chat. I will try to pick them up anyway. I'm also just going to look at my chroma key again because now the light is changing. I probably just need to adjust it slightly. There we go. Wow. Okay. Okay, so a couple of people getting their Saracens today. So presumably then they have released them this week. Okay, so I may find I get them in my order this week. Fingers crossed. I'm not holding out. Paul says, got my Saracen. Looks like all the bits are in the box, but it's gone into my stash and won't be building for a while. waiting on aftermarket decals, etc. Yeah, I don't blame you. But we also have a few more people in. Got Craig in. Good to see you. Got Jonex. Paul, obviously, mentioned. Greg. We've got Travis. Good to see you guys. Well, yeah, it says an awful lot, doesn't it? That you guys are hearing from, the likes of Jadlam, before Airfix, before the parent company's brand, on what should be one of the the first tier releases this year. That's a shocking gap to me. I think the number one release. I'm sorry about the virtual background here. But the number one release to me this year is the Phantom. Not personally, but I think on a modelling scale, the Phantom, the Saracen, the Canberra JU52. I put kind of together. Oh my god, my chroma filter, such a pain. There we go. So it's from, I think, from a modelling perspective, a general modelling perspective, it's number one or two. If you're an armour modeller, it's obviously number one. But even if you are a British Cold War subject aficionado, it's probably on there, right? Even if you're an aircraft guy, the Phantom's probably number one, but Saracen's probably number two, or maybe number three after the Canberra, depending on your scale and stuff. So to not make a song and dance about it, to me, is... But then, how many shorts and stuff have you seen from Airfix recently on YouTube? I think they just don't have the staff. I think they got rid of so many people. They don't have the bandwidth to do what they were doing before. And that's not where their priorities are. Their priorities are elsewhere. And I think it's pure short-termism. I think it's going to come back and bite them in the arse. But anyway, I've got my last little bit of Buffalo Trace here in my glass. I thought I'd just polish it off. So cheers, everybody. I'm going to have a little snifter. If anybody's looking in the UK to try an American bourbon whiskey, I would recommend Buffalo Trace. And apparently Brett, who, if you guys have ever watched Scale Modelling live on a Friday night, is owner of High Altitude Hobbies over in the US. He knows a lot about whiskey. And I asked him about this, and it's a good whiskey. It's a good American bourbon. So there it is, Buffalo Trace. Empty now, of course. Morrison's, I don't know if they still have it on offer, but Morrison's have this, and they do have an offer on it. It's like £10 less than normal. It's a really good price, and it's a good American Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. I would recommend it. It's good. Okay, a little bit of a whiskey aside there. Greg says, I know, weird, seeing how last year every release sale was accompanied with some sort of fanfare. Yeah, they even had that whole, something big is coming, and then it was the Airfix 1/24 scale Spitfire with beer barrels, and it's like they made a big song and dance about it. It's like, okay, it's the same kit they've already released with some Edouard resin. It's just like, okay, it's interesting. I don't think it really needed the scale of fanfare that they attributed to it. So, yeah, I was a little bit, okay, FX could turn it down from the 11 that they were on to, to a 9, an 8 or 9, I think, what I'd be comfortable with. And they've gone to a 0. It's just like, okay, don't turn it off. We still want to see that Airfix are around. But I just don't think that they've got the budget. I just think they are shackled by Hornby, which is really again, disappointing to see. And I can only hope that, you know, all the good things we've seen from Revell and the stuff that's coming out from them is going to fill that gap. You know, the Hunter T7, I'm really looking forward to. I have to pick up one of the I have to pick up some for the shop as well, of the 1/32 scale BK5 Canon armed ME262, because I'd like to have a look at that. So yeah, I think it's a mixed time at the moment, because there's lots of other stuff going on, and while it's sad what Hornby are doing to Airfix, Airfix will survive in some form along the way, right? We had said goodbye to a lot of model companies in the past. They have come back in various forms. If you look at Dragon, for instance, you know, just announced that they're getting more into 3D design and, you know, all of this. But Zimi models are actually doing a lot of the stuff that they were doing, their black box releases, black label releases. And it's difficult in China to tell what companies are actual separated companies. Now, Dragon were always based in Hong Kong, so it's a little bit aside from mainland China. But of course, I mean, if you look at border models and who are the other company? Border and one of the other Chinese ones. It's just they're so similar in their box art style, in a lot of their stuff. I'm not sure. It just doesn't come out of the same factory. I think it might be Panda Models. But yeah, I mean, it's all state sponsored, obviously, and who knows exactly, you know, how independent these companies actually are. Other than the people there, obviously. So, just scrolling down, Keith says, as a starter kit, Airfix should remember you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Which I think is what, you know, Dale and the team's philosophy was. To broaden the hobby, you need to have, you know, that good engagement. I don't think people at Hornby give a damn. I think they're looking at the bottom line, they're looking at the numbers, they just want to sell kits. You know, the Mike Ashley way is pile it high and sell it cheap, right? It didn't work for Debenhams, and I doubt very much it's going to work for Airfix. In fact, I can guarantee it's not going to work for Airfix. So, yeah. Julian says, I think a starter set has to be an enjoyable entry into the hobby. It's cheap. If a cheap, poor kit has small parts and is hard to put together, enjoyable, I'd say no. Yeah, exactly what. I think the sentiments are appropriate. Paul Dye says, aren't those Revell kits just old Matchbox reboxes, though, still for £9? Yes, they are. They absolutely are, Paul. But that, I think, isn't the point. The point is those Matchbox kits, those cheap, you know, Revell are putting, so for one thing, they're putting Revell classics on them, which although they're not really Revell kits, but, you know, they are acknowledging that they are older kits. But again, Revell released some old crap, right? And I think they are scaling back the amount of that they do, because they recognise this as well, and they have people in the organisation now that understand that. Those Matchbox kits, I think, are pretty much, most of them, there are a couple that don't build that well, but most of them are pretty much ideal starter kits, because they were aimed at children, really, at the time. But they've got decent detail. It's clunky, it's a bit heavy-handed. That kind of doesn't matter for a new builder. And for the rest of us, you know, it can be a mojo build, it can be something that you look to improve your skills on, use as a paint mule, as I say, for wargaming or whatever. So I think there's nothing wrong with releasing an old kit. It's how you release it, right? A lot of things, the general action is acceptable. It's the circumstances and the way it's done that determines that, right? Let me let me annoy some people by getting political now, right? Trump, President Trump, right? Whatever you think of him, I think he's a moron. But that will have annoyed some people instantly. But whatever you think of him, his late night Truth Social posts are appropriate in a particular way. If he was, a 20-year-old YouTuber commenting to his friends, all of what he says would be fine, right? It's just the rantings of somebody who doesn't know very much, is a bit young, inexperienced, and is just blowing off steam, because they're hot-headed and they don't have the experience to think things through. What makes it not appropriate is the fact that he is almost 80 years old and should know better, and he's the president of the United effing States. Shouldn't be posting anything on social media. So, for me, reboxing and selling old kits, like an old Matchbox re-release, is absolutely fine if you're managing it correctly. And that's selling it for £9 with a Vintage Classics label on. Well, Revell Classics is a Vintage Classic by any other name, is a great way to sell them, right? It makes them affordable for beginners and experienced model builders alike. It's honest because it's saying it's an old kit. So I like all of that. I think all of that is good. Even something like the Belvedere, right, which I think is a horrible kit. And it really should have had more done to it as a release. But it's a Vintage Classic. It's released as it is, and the sales of it then indicate how successful it is not to make any amendments to the molds, right? Because I don't think they were selling droves, right? So I think if you, as Revell used to do, as Airfix used to do, and seem to be doing now, if you're boxing an old kit and putting new in, putting it in a new box with new fancy box art, putting new as a big, splash sticker on the front, that's wrong. That's dishonest. It's, especially if you're doing it at, big premium price, like £25, and it's like, and you open it up and it's a 1979 Matchbox kit. Well, your expectations, were up here and now they're here. Your trust in the company has just gone from that to nothing, and you think, well, I'm never going to buy a Revell kit again. Or if I do, it'll be with, extremely guarded, or if it's in a sale or something. So you've instantly cut off, the revenue stream from that one person enormously. And that's going to be replicated by, let's say the majority, let's say the 80%, Pareto out the data, of your potential market. So that's devastating for no brand wants a product that alienates 80% of its revenue stream going forward, right? That's a disaster for any company. Howard says, I wouldn't be surprised if Dale doesn't end up at Revell, /DMBK, etc. If not fired, that would have been a coup. Now it would be a steal. Yeah, I think the problem, my honest feeling is that Dale will probably go outside of the industry, right? Because this is a very closed industry. It's very niche. He was a brand leader, so he has very transferable skills, and there are more jobs out there at that sort of level outside of this industry than within it. So I think it'd be sad, to lose that skill, but I think that's my honest feeling of it. I mean, a company like DBMK doesn't have the capacity at the moment. It's a small, it's like a startup, right? It'd be like me saying I could employ Dale. I'd love to employ Dale. There's no way I could, unless he wants to work for nothing. So yeah, I see him going outside of the industry. I see him being offered a position outside of the industry, and he has, kids and a family to feed. So why wouldn't he? Adrian says, oh no, so Casey says it'd be horrible if they murdered Airfix by mismanagement. That wouldn't be the first time that happens on the market. Yeah, I mean, it was essentially Airfix died through mismanagement. It died as a company through mismanagement. You know, that's the brutal truth of it. So why wouldn't that happen again? You know. Oops. Adrian said the new box art looks like it's been done in a nursery school. It is a bit Fisher Price. Let me see if I can pick it somewhere. If anybody's got a picture, then please pop it in the Discord so I can Airfix. Let's just see this Gazelle starter kit and maybe that. Yeah, here we go. I've got it. $6.99. Oh God, what's happened there? Sorry, I accidentally threw myself. This is the box art. This is what they've gone with. I mean, this to me is absolute minimum effort. Let's see if we've got the other. I mean, if you are a 12-year-old, is that going to appeal to you? It looks old-fashioned, right? Compared to this. Reject. Yeah, I just don't know. It's just like... It's just madness to me. The only thing I would say is that $6.99 is an absolute steal for this kit. I mean, Airfix themselves, you know, as here, it's normally a £15 kit, right? Okay, the Hobbycraft have it here on offer at $11.25, but $6.99 for that DB5 is the steal of these releases. The others are garbage. There's no point in buying any of these. This is absolutely ancient, this kit. I think it's 1959. It's 58 or 59, I think these tools came out. It's one of those that still has... The pilot is a little bulge moulded into one side of the kit. These nacelles don't fit. The wings don't really fit properly. The fuselage halves are different sizes. You can put a lot of work into it and make a reasonable Comet out of it. But a starter can't. The Gazelle is too small and fiddly and delicate to be a starter kit. It really is. The only one I don't have direct experience of is the Land Rover and trailer. But again, why are they doing this old J&B kit? You know, because that is tiny. Yeah, 76 scale Land Rover is tiny. And trailer. So yeah, in store from the 14th. So I would say get yourselves down to Lidl to pick up the DB5. Maybe we should do a DB5 group build. How about that? What do you guys think? Do an Aston Martin Lidl DB5 group build. That's probably the cheapest group build we could do ever. $6.99. That's a really good price for that. But are kids going to be buying that? I just don't see it. Somebody did make an interesting point on this, though, is that all of these are non-military subjects, and I wonder if that's coming in the new leadership, who I believe is a woman. I don't know whether that feeds into it. I don't want to be sexist or misogynist or appear that way here, but that's not the way to capture a new audience. The flowers. I mean, why cancel the flowers? There's so many questions. Little Things Junkie says, Alex, the adverts keep interrupting you. I have the adverts on the live streams set at the absolute minimum level I can have them. So apologies, but that's a YouTube decision, not me. I can't set them any lower than they are set. Paul says, oh God, come on. Got to say that I love these old Matchbox kits when I was a kid. Yeah, the Matchbox 76 scale armour was pretty good. As I say, there weren't really many that I can think of which were really difficult to build. I mean, some of them were very easy, and some of them were great. The Jagdpanzer 4 L70 wasn't particularly good. The Jagdpanther and Panther were a bit mid. The Panzer 3 is excellent. Panzer 3 Aus L. The Puma, the 234/4, superb. They also did the 232 or 231/2. I think the Rad, the 8 Rad one, was okay. One of the things I really liked actually is they came with some really nice styrene figures. Really nice officer and a guy with an MP40. The Sherman Firefly wasn't that great, but the Comet and the Chaffee was really good. So yeah, there's some really good little gems in there, and I think those are much more ideal as starter kits than any of these. To be honest, even that DB5, for the majority, I don't think is a great starter, because the cars are more expensive, and I mean, not here obviously, but I think as starters they just require a little bit more skill than perhaps some of the others. For me, the Sherman is the ultimate airfix starter kit that they've made. I think it's okay. They got the Firefly, but they still put the whole machine gun in it. Bit of a boo-boo. Not for a starter, doesn't matter. For anybody else, you can just put a little piece of plastic art over it, call it, building and modelling skills. It's really easy to do. It's got minimal decals. I just don't understand where they're going with these, other than the Comet, Gazelle, and Land Rover are going to be cheap. Cheap to make, cheap to impress. But why are they doing this and not making a song and dance about this Saracen? It's absolutely bizarre. Elk Model says more on his way, too polite. Okay, well. Julian says, famous aircraft. The Gazelle is famous to who exactly? Well, the other thing that I think Airfix have massively effed up on here is these are going to be sold in Lidl and Aldi, right? So this is from Lidl. These aren't even Gen X recognizable things. Most of these are my father's generation of recognition, right? The DB5 I only really know through Goldfinger, and I watched Goldfinger when I was in junior school. And it wasn't the first release. So the Gazelle, was an aircraft of the 60s and 70s, right? When it disappeared. That Land Rover, okay, if you're in a rural area, you probably might might have a bit more idea. The de Havilland 88. I mean, come on. How many people? I'm going to go out on a limb and say under 40 really have good recognition of these subjects. I think if you get to 25 and under, so my kids' generation, the recognition of this is going to be close to zero. I think 1 out of 4 if you're really lucky. If you've got someone who's a little bit outward looking, or has parents that showed them Goldfinger as a kid, or they've worked on they've grown up on a farm, so they know the Land Rover. I mean, the number of people under 25 that are going to recognise the de Havilland DH88 Comet, whether you think that's good or bad, is going to be approaching zero. So who's going to be buying that? The unwary who see, oh, it's a red aeroplane. I want to build a red aeroplane, Dad. That's it. And then it will end up as a gluey mess, and you've lost them. So for me, it's a huge miss, and I don't know what Airfix are thinking, or more specifically, I don't understand what Hornby are thinking. Let's have a little look. AMDB5 group build, go for it. I think I might do that, Why don't I put an announcement out tomorrow, because that's still a couple of days' notice. They're not released until the 14th. Gives plenty of people plenty of time to plan to go out and buy their DB5, and we'll do a group, because it's a beautiful car, right? Immortalised, of course, by Goldfinger, and I used to have a corgi toy of it, which did all of the things. The little metal shield popped up at the back, the machine guns came out the front, the tyre shredders came out the hubs, had an ejector seat, the whole works. That's what interested me as a kid. It wasn't really the car itself. As an adult now, I appreciate the aesthetic beauty of Aston Martins in general. But yeah, I think that would be quite a cool thing to do, right? So Elk says, again, I think it's to do with the current climate. Maybe they don't want to promote military because of it. I think it's just ridiculous, though, right? Because, okay, so when I was at school, the Falkland Wars, the Falklands happened, right? The Falkland War, and the military, it was on our screens and everything, and there was a certain sense of national pride about us defending, the territory which was invaded, as I'm sure there is in Ukraine against the Russians, for instance. But I mean, in terms of how it affected us, I mean, it didn't make me bloodthirsty because I saw it on TV. I thought the Harrier was cool. It didn't actually really make me think much more than that. I think it's more cool now than I did then, really. I always had an interest in militaria before that, so I think this idea, it's a bit like the whole thing about video games causing violence, right? It's all been debunked. It's that sort of, a bit like the satanic panic with D&D. It's all this sort of stuff that people get very worked up about, but actually when you look at it, it doesn't affect human behaviour at all. You're either interested in things or not. Yeah, you're interested in military, in tank, and in aircraft, and whatever, or you're not. So yeah, I think the whole thing about not wanting to promote war is such a bizarre thing to say. It's just like, it doesn't. In fact, if anything, I think seeing active conflict makes you less likely to want to do something in many respects. When you see the actuality of war, rather than Yeah, a tank is cool. You know, a gun can look cool. It's not cool if it's actually killed somebody. You know, it's a very different thing. I just think the people that put forward this sort of mantra that you know, somehow promoting military is bad, don't really understand. You know, can't hold two thoughts in their head at the same time. You know, the fundamentally something can look cool, and we can be interested in it without wanting to kill somebody with it. But hey, maybe that's controversial. I don't know. But I get it. I get the, you know, that could indeed be why. And yes, if anybody does have adverts, I do apologise. I would recommend YouTube Premium. I go YouTube Premium. I've never looked back. It's fantastic. I I don't begrudge the amount I pay YouTube each month compared to the amount that I used to pay Amazon a month, or you know, each year, and then they push adverts on me anyway. I actually, here's an interesting point for everybody. We see less adverts on Amazon Prime now. Now I've opted out of Prime than I did when I was a Prime member. So what was I paying for? Free postage, basically. Not worth it, in my personal opinion. Paul Ty says maybe Airfix will bring back the blue tits now. I think there was always a plan to bring those back. You know, in fact, Dale actually said, I think he said on air that they would be coming back at some point in the future, but it was uncertain. I mean, they're not even going to do the flowers now, so I think the chances of them bringing back some of these older kits now is much diminished by that. If you look at all of these kits, they're all kits that they have released in the past, fairly recently. I mean, the Westland Gazelle has been released a lot. In fact, let's do a little Scalemates trip, shall we? Let me share my screen with you so you can see what I'm doing. So we'll get to Airfix, go for kits, static model kits, physical. Let's do 1/72nd scale, brand Airfix, aircraft, propeller, and in the free text filter we'll put Comet. There we go. So last release in 2014, before that 2012, 2011, also released by Whirlybird in 2012, 2009, 2004, 2003, released in 1998, 1975, 1969 in a collaboration with Plasti, 1967, 1959. Oh, I was wrong. It's actually 1957 was the original tooling. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This will be its 20th release in one form or another. And let's see, when my tooling was, I think, from this release in 1998, and it wasn't good then. So add 28 years and, well, let's say this is a single impression in 2004 for Whirlybird. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 further impressions out of the tooling aren't going to have done it any favours. I doubt, well, I can almost guarantee that they haven't done anything to this to improve it. I mean, it's not even like that artwork really goes back to the original, does it? Because it doesn't. It's a different picture. Let's have a look at the Gazelle. Oh, okay. Oh, I think it's because I did aircraft and propeller, and it's a helicopter, so it doesn't count, bizarrely. Here we go, Gazelle. Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once as Hella 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So it's a newer tool from 1973, but it's been impressed more times. So again, the version that my kids will have done will have been, I think, this one. Yeah, probably the 98 impression would be the one that was kicking around when my kids did it. Don't think it would be the 2005 one. So yeah, it's an odd one. And then lastly, I suppose I could go Land Rover. Oh, of course, it's not actually an Airfix. No, it's not 170. It's 176. There we go. So of course they just released this in the new box for the J&B release. So we've got 1, 2, got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So a little bit better, but JB Models kits were, well, not quite Airfix standard, I would say, maybe. But it's just bizarre why they have done that and not looked at the more modern Land Rover. Specifically made as a starter set, as with the DB5, which is only a couple of years old. You know, it's a great little kit. Why not do that one? And then the last one, DB5. Yeah, 2023. Now, of course, the other thing that it does, which I didn't mention before, was, of course, it destroys retailers' stock, right? The normal price for this, actually, normal price for this is $15.99 from Airfix. So I sell all the car starter kits at $14.50 because that's like about 10% off. So this is half of that price. So nobody's going to buy a DB5 from me whilst these things are in store. Now, I don't think they're going to sell in the same way that the other Airfix starter kits have sold. And, you know, I'm actively encouraging people to go out and buy that particular one because I think it's great value. But there you go. That's not the point from the Hornby point. Is it's a big middle finger up to retailers, especially those who've just purchased. They're still selling this. It costs more to buy that kit from Airfix trade than that kit is being sold for. So yeah. Let me just move up to, because I've scrolled down. So I'm not missing anybody. Greg says, Aquaclay or Flow for a novice modeler who's struggling to get the finish he's not quite sure he's looking for. Asking for a friend. Difficult to make a recommendation if you're not quite sure what you're looking for. I would say check out the video I did on the use of them on miniatures, because that gives you an idea of the difference between the finishes, and then that hopefully will help you make a decision on which of those you prefer for whatever sort of modelling you're doing. So basically, the Aqua Flow is like a standard wash, standard acrylic wash, like a Games Workshop or a Vallejo one. It will stain whatever it covers, and it will pool in the recesses, so it will stain those more. But it will darken or tint, let's say, everything. These don't tend to pool quite as much as some other washes. The Aqua Clay is more suitable for things like panel lines on aircraft and stuff, because you can wipe it off where you don't want. It still will stain the underlying effect somewhat. It will stain it less if it's satin or gloss. So if you want a really clean look, do it on a gloss surface, and then it'll just be much easier to wipe off those areas. If you want a more weathered, stained look, then use it over a matte surface, and then you just take it off with water and a tissue or cloth or cotton bud. So yeah, depends on the finish you're looking for. So if you're not quite sure the finish you're looking for, it's a bit difficult to answer the question, but check the video out, it'll give you an idea. I am doing a video on scale models being used with those. That's one of the things that's in at the moment. Got quite a lot of videos in process at the moment, so that's one of the other things I wanted to just talk a little bit about tonight, once we've finished destroying Airfix's starter kit strategy, and Hornby's approach in general at the moment. So yeah, I will come back to the videos. Yeah, if the de Havilland Comet had a Red Bull sign, that would help youngsters thinking it's a race plane, but then you'd need licensing. So also, I think just the premise of using an old kit as a starter set is just fundamentally wrong, unless it's an easy set. I think it should be assessed by a modeler, right? It's like, is this kit easy to build? Do a focus group, like go to a couple of schools or, like club events or something around the country. Just give them a bunch of models and get their feedback afterwards. That's not going to cost that much for a model company to do that, to get real tangible data that could then feed the market. If they get that right, it's going to pay way more than the small cost of investment there. But yeah. The Gazelle went out of British service only 3 years ago. Yeah, that might be true, but how many people, if you're not associated with the military, I mean, I'm from Lincolnshire, right? Pretty active militarily, right? Bomber County and all that. I live over the past 26 years, I've lived in Wiltshire, North Dorset and Somerset. I'm really on the border of all of those. Near Boscombe Down and the Salisbury Plains, where a lot of army activity goes on. I can't remember the last time I saw a Gazelle. And I'm in a really active military part of the country. See Chinooks all the time. But I mean, you see Apaches all the time. If that was an Apache, I would get it, right? But that's a war thing. A Gazelle, I honestly can't remember. In fact, the last time I saw a Gazelle would be at an air show. That's where I've last seen a Gazelle. So, and I'm somebody who's actively interested in aviation. So I think, when something goes out of service in a military isn't necessarily representative of how visible it is, Aaron says, convert the Gazelle to Blue Thunder. Doug says, I know the Aston, that's it. Paul says, as a person of mature years, I do like the de Havilland Comet. I think the Comet's a beautiful aircraft. And again, this is the whole thing, right? Don't get that I'm slagging off any of these subjects. They're just not in the right place. That's simply it. If I was going to choose some kits to go in the aisle at Aldi and Lidl. Well, I wouldn't do them at $6.99. I wouldn't do all of them at $6.99. The F-35B would be one of them. So say for £15 or something, if we're going to do a discounted rate for them. So if you have 2 or 3 kits, 2 or 3 different price ranges, you have a $6.99, a $9.99 and a $14.99, say, for instance. That gives parents choice as well. But like, choose things which are visible, which are identifiable. Spitfires always sell. And I know people will moan about it, but I'd have the Spitfire Mark V in there. I'd have the Red Arrows Hawk and the F-35B for sure. I only have to think about the sorts of things that kids look at when they come to the shop on the starter stand. Yeah. A car. I would probably go with the E-Type Jaguar. And that's not because it's recognised by kids, but kids think it looks cool. It's just an intrinsic aesthetic quality to it. More kids look at the old vintage cars, including the Land Rover, actually. The Land Rover might be the other one, actually. The new Land Rover, not the JMB one. But more kids look at the vintage cars, the Aston Martin and the Jaguar, than they do the new stuff, the Pagani and the Bentley and stuff, which is I always found interesting. But it's usually the Jaguar. Make of that what you will. Because, let's face it, most kids aren't going to know cars. They just think what looks cool as a car, right? Adrian says, still waiting for the Lightning Group build. That's right, we do need to do, because the thing is, the Lightning Group build, we're going to do live, right? We're going to get everybody on the stream together and do it as a timed thing. Now, I do have availability. I'm taking Maria to the airport on Friday, so I've got a week then. If we can arrange a time within that week, then we can get it done. So I will put a post up in the Discord for that. Thanks for reminding me, Adrian. But the group build for the Aston Martin, I think, just open for everybody. Just go and buy this kit. I'll do a video where we'll just get all the submissions together and we can have a vote on it, and I'll put a prize up for it. How about that? Okay. Other questions and comments? Will Hornby sell the Airfix brand, given that, as far as I know, it's the only part of the group actually making money? Sadly, I doubt it. I believe Corgi also does pretty well. So there is quite a large die-cast, following. So I think Corgi is also profitable, but Corgi and Airfix, I believe, are the two. Hornby certainly doesn't make money, right? Hornby Railways. And it has the same issues with production that Airfix does. So it's not an Airfix problem, it's a Hornby problem, as I've said for the past 3 years. Julian says, the only time I saw a gazelle in real life was in the 70s, an open day at RAF St Athan. Oh, and sadly, Doug can't get an Aston Martin in New Mexico. Yeah, that is a shame. Maybe anybody in America that wants to do this could get in touch with High Altitude. I'll speak to Brett at High Altitude Scale Hobbies, because potentially, okay, it's going to cost you more, right? But I could buy a load of these, send them to Brett, and then Brett could send them out in the US. So that would make them potentially possible, let's say. As a thought to bear in mind, I'll bring it up with Brett for Scale Modelling Live on Friday. We'll see. We'll see if we can't get some Aston Martins into the US. You know, I thought Trump said that you didn't have to pay tax on luxury cars, so that no tariff, right? I think I've missed the discussion. Michael says, I live in Sunderland. I don't have a model shop anywhere near me. There is the North East Model Centre in County Durham. That's an excellent model shop if you can get to it. Travis says, I was called a woke lefty in the other stream for saying younger modelers aren't as interested in World War II, so why should they be forced to build them? I don't think... so I think that there's a lot to unpack there. I don't think anybody's a woke lefty for saying that that kind of thing. So which other stream? I'd love to know. Please do let me know. But I don't actually think it's true. So if you think... So my connection to World War II is through my grandparents, right? So my grandfather was in the 8th Army. He was a Royal Engineer. He fought in every single major theatre of the war. You know, he was in the army from before the war, so he was in the British Expeditionary Force. He was at Dunkirk. He was at D-Day. He was in North Africa. In it all, lived through it all. He was wounded once with shrapnel. Spent a couple of weeks out of service and then went straight back in. He stayed in the army after the war. He loved the army. He died the year I was born, so I have no direct connection. I only have the stories and the photographs, and I have his medals and things. I've always had an interest, though, in aircraft, in militaria, in armour, all that sort of stuff. Without having that direct historical link. Yes, I saw films on TV, but I think the current generations have had, maybe not as much, but still similar exposure, because we still do remember those events very much. You know, we still have the memorial days, somewhat, I would say, almost more than when I was growing up in a lot of ways, in terms of the televisation of them, or like the presence on now social media and stuff. I think it's almost more visible, especially when people like Pete Hegseth make an absolute arse of himself, as he did this week. And good God, that was appalling. Sorry, I was struck then by just how dumb he is. So, what is it I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that there is still exposure to the Second World War, right? And there's a lot of historical documentary and stuff, but also a lot of current films. If you think about the last 10 years, the number of World War II films that have been out, really excellent ones as well, like Dunkirk, All Quiet on the Western Front, ton of stuff. And they're good films as well, not just, slop. And they're not glorifying the war. They're quite, they're showing the bravery of people there, but also some of the horror of it. And, it's more of a recounting of the events in many ways. So I still have, when kids come in with their parents into the shop, the kids are often interested. In fact, they are more interested in World War II aircraft and tanks than they are modern ones. Now, I'm not quite sure why that is. That's only my observation, right? I had a couple come in, and the son, out of all the aircraft there, again, they went to the Airfix starter set because they asked me, what would you recommend? And I said, if they've never done a model before, an Airfix starter kit is ideal. Yeah? And he wanted to do a Spitfire. So he chose Spitfire. The daughter really wanted to build a Messerschmitt, a BF-109. She thought that was the coolest looking thing there. Her parents dissuaded her, which, they're her parents. They can make that decision. But personally, I was just like, just let her build what she wants. You know, it's not like she's a Nazi because she likes the look of a BF 109F. You know, so I don't think they should be forced to build them. But I think the interest and the appeal isn't necessarily bound by age in the same way that I think association with things like cars is, for instance, which is much more about your personal experience, I feel. So I don't know. I don't know really what it is. I also asked a group of younger modelers, so all in their 20s, coming out of Telford a couple of years ago, and I asked them, because they were coming out, and I said, do you mind if I ask you, I've got a channel, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? And they're like, no. And I asked them, a bunch of stuff, where they come from, how long they've been there, what they bought. And all of it was World War II and Cold War stuff, early Cold War, like 50s and stuff. No modern things in there. And again, I think because modelling allows you to exercise the creation of something that is also historical, it's not just present. And World War II was the last World War. Obviously, it was world changing. It set a new world order. There's so many. It was so all encompassing, and there were so many tales from that. I think it allows the imagination to explore that as well, and maybe that's part of it. But anyway, just an observation rather than making any particular point. Just scrolling down. Comment. Oh, ironically, America is probably the largest market for one-to-one scale Aston Martins. Possibly. Doug says, I'm a proud woke lefty. It says, I'm a lefty, but I don't need to keep awake to avoid a lynching. You see, I don't really believe in labels like that. It's one of the, and again, I've spoken about this before on that video I did on tribalism, the bipartisan nature of American politics, which has crept more into our politics in recent years. It was always, well, no, actually, originally it was more open, then became less open and more open. It sort of fluctuates here. But a two-party system where you have us and them. I've never believed in us and them cultures in work, in politics, in anything like that. It fosters a deliberately adversarial relationship and part of your brain, which isn't helpful. I think it's much more useful to talk about policies than it's one of the things we get. I've mentioned this before as well. We watch a variety of streams on YouTube. There's a lot of left-wing media that we watch because it's news on what's been happening in America and the travesty of some of those things. So it naturally comes from the left. But one of the things I cannot abide is the left-leaning politics being rammed down my throat at the same time as reporting it. It's just like, I don't need that commentary. I just need, tell me what has happened. Tell me the news. I can make my own decision on whether I think that is good, bad, or indifferent, right? I don't care if you are a Democrat or a Republican reporting this, it's not going to colour my view of it, right? If you say, oh, no, you're on the political left or the political right, I don't care. It's what you're saying, it's what you're doing that's important to me. If we talk about a policy, it's like, well, what is your stance on this policy and why? It's not a Republican stance or a Democratic stance in the same way here as it's like not conservative or Labour or liberal. It's like, well, what, you don't have your own thoughts and views. You have to represent those of a party. What, that's, to me, that's bizarre. I don't think labelling in that way is helpful in any way. Having said that, I do not agree with the fringe left. I also do not agree with the far right, because then it doesn't become, then it isn't about personal opinions. Basically, they become cults. And whenever you get that kind of extreme ideology, you go beyond belief and you can't argue with that. It's like arguing against religion when, ultimately you can always play the ultimate trump card, forgive the pun, of God just made it this way. It's like, well, okay, you can't go higher than an ultimate being doing something. So, yeah, we have to either we take that off the table as an argument so we can have a discussion, or we just don't have the discussion because you can always trump it with that. So there's no point in talking, Anyway, Greg says, speaking of D-Day, do you not think the day went by without much acknowledgement, not just from the modelling world, but in general? I'm afraid it was coloured for me by the unfortunate comments of Pete Hegseth and him using it as a political rallying point rather than honouring those that went before us. But I think we tend to work, and it's a very human thing, we tend to work around big numbers. The 80th anniversary of, the next big one will be the 85th. We tend to look at those sorts of anniversaries as more meaningful somehow. They're not, of course. It's just a construct of ours, but that's just the way we are, right? Travis says, it's during this week's Airfix and Chill. Moss deleted it quickly, I think, so that's cool. Oh, okay. Yeah, well. I am not invited to those, as you know, so I couldn't comment. Just scrolling down. Yeah, John, I think that's absolutely right. As a moderate independent, I don't like labels. They're ugly. Yeah, it's like the problem with labels is I think they can be used against you, because as soon as you use a label, it can be used as a slur. Which is bizarre, right? It's a bizarre thing, but it's a very tribal thing to do. And there's still that little lizard part of our brain that appeals to that sometimes. Travis says, I'm an average New Zealander. Most Americans will think I'm communist. I do think it's amusing. Again, this isn't about politics, obviously. We're just all chatting here. But I always think it's amusing. I still get a feed from Quora. Now, if you want to see stupid, go onto the Quora website. It's the people who didn't make Reddit. It's like, and you'll get obvious troll questions and stuff. But oh, why do the British think their communist health system is better than the Americans? It's like, well, okay. Because something has the word social in it doesn't make it automatically communist, right? Let's just get that obvious thing out of the way. It's just like, it's not communist. It's just like, it's just a universal healthcare system, which is meant to be free at the point of treatment. Because when you're sick, you shouldn't be worrying about paying for something. Why do we British people think that it's better than the American system? Because of the outcomes. Okay, so there are many, many things that are wrong with the NHS. It is funded well, but it's horribly mismanaged. The money doesn't go where it's needed. There's lots of layers of bureaucracy. It's built for a system of less people than it actually caters for. There's many, many things that can be improved about it, but the fundamental status of it and the fact that we live longer and have better general health than Americans are the two things that I judge it by. So enough said. And it doesn't bankrupt us. So now, is it best? Do you have some of the best treatments and hospitals in the world in America? Yes, you do. Again, the two things can exist simultaneously in the same truth. Doesn't mean everybody's getting there, right? Okay. Moving away now from politics and healthcare and other controversial systems, we might do. Joel says, Travis, I don't know too much about New Zealand, but I do know they were pretty awesome LRDGers indeed. My best man was a Kiwi, so they're pretty goody good. Yeah, the only problem I think with so New Zealand, it's very as a country, it's quite Anglophile in my experience. A lot of New Zealanders bizarrely come to the UK and stay. You know, they have this amazingly beautiful country and stuff, and they come here. But the problem with New Zealand is it doesn't have all the scary death creatures that Australia does, so that's good. But it does have Australia's problem of like getting model kits sometimes, you know, from some sources is, you know, a long process. So anyway, FX is Saracen. Forget US politics. Yes, indeed. Casey says you missed my question. Oh, apologies. And irrelevant. Predatory capitalist is something the Monopoly game was supposed to warn us about. And how many people have finished a game of Monopoly and been happy with the outcome? It's also a terrible game in many, many ways. Howard says, I have 2 bionic eyes free of charge. Cheers, NHS. Right. Okay, people talking about what they are working on, which is fantastic. So I mentioned videos, so let me get back to the channel and videos and modelling. So tomorrow I have a video coming out on the background of why I actually chose to make an aqueous thinner. So channel members already have access to that. That goes live tomorrow night at 7:30, I believe, UK time. So please do check that out. It's part 1 of 2. So the second video will actually be on like how I've gone about constructing it and why I've made it in the way it is. So talking more about the actual thinner and how to use it and the results I got from my testing. I'll also be doing, so I've got the video on the aquaclay and aquaflow washes on scale models as well. That'll be coming out, fingers crossed, next week. I've got an unboxing of the Tamiya DAX as well, just as something a bit different. I also got a few things in the works. Obviously, the JP fans video went up this week. So JP fans approached me, and I was just like, "What the hell is this company?" As I said, you know, it's like, is this Japanese only fans? It's like, no, it's like a proxy buying service for Japan. I'm like, I was very cautious to start with and had a look, and there are quite a few different services that do this for Japan, and it looked interesting. And you know, I've gone through, and they said basically put together some stuff that you want to look at and put it out. We'll package it up and ship it to you, and then you can see how the service works. So at the moment, those are all packed up and being shipped to me. So when they arrive, I'm going to do an unboxing of what I got and then give you my impression of what the service is, because I didn't want to. The first video was just like, this is what it is, and there's, you know, they give me some coupon codes, which I believe are split. There's various minimum things. I don't know how it works really. So that's just there, and then the second one will be my experience of actually using the service and what I've got. So I've got a couple of strange Japanese space battleships, a couple of... there's actually a lot of... Oh God, what's it called? Maschinenkrieger. Hasegawa and a couple of other companies do a lot of Maschinenkrieger stuff, which is quite expensive if you buy it here, and not expensive if you buy it in Japan. But of course, the expense is getting it. So, bought a few of those because it's always something I've kind of been interested in. That sort of, what happened if World War II carried on and got into sort of grav tanks and all that, droids and stuff. So it's kind of familiar but future. So what if? And then I also managed to get a job lot of old Hasegawa 48 scale kits, a Corsair Mark II, and 3 Phantoms, one of which is the FGR version. So I thought, when that comes, what I'm going to do is wait till the Airfix Jaguar comes out in 48 scale, and I can do a direct comparison between the two kits. It's quite, fortuitous. So if you haven't seen the video, go and have a look. Check out the website and just check what's on it. You don't have to do anything through it if you don't want to, but it's an interesting thing. I'm interested to see how it actually works in practice, and tell you guys about it and have a look at what I've got and poke around with that. So that could be quite interesting. Paul actually says he ordered 5 Tamiya F1 kits off JP Fans for about 40% cheaper than available on eBay. Wait to see what happens next. Yeah, so that's the thing. In Japan, a lot of this stuff, if you imagine like buying stuff on eBay here, you can get a lot of Airfix stuff, for instance, on eBay, much cheaper than you could buy it, say, in America. So I'm sure if they had the same sort of service in America for the UK or for Europe, that would be useful to, to Americans. Probably also for Australia and New Zealand. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. So we'll see. Sorry, just checking comments. It still sounds like a porn channel. Yeah, it did. I was actually telling a customer in the shop about it when I was doing the video, because I was editing it out of the shop, and they came in and we were chatting, and I was saying about it, and when I said JP Fans, he looked at me like, "You talking about some anime site?" It's like, no, it's it's not a manga thing or anything. It's no, don't want to get that reputation. But yeah, the some interesting stuff. I mean, some really bizarre stuff. Japanese go into hobby in a big way, right? In a way that is. I'd love to go to Japan and just absorb the whole thing, do the Tamiya tour, and it's just an expensive thing to do. Japan is not cheap, but it's really interesting. Their kind of Japanese eBay has some really interesting stuff on it. So it's worth just going and checking out, just to troll through and see what's there. But yeah, definitely. In okay, that's sorry, I'm just looking at comments, and Casey says, I will repeat my question then. Do you have more concrete plans about paint mixer web version? Yeah, that's what I should do, is talk about that. So talking about videos, so I've talked about those pieces. I have 2 videos coming out again, breaking them down to keep the length reasonable, on British armour colours. So mixing British armour colours with ICM and Tamiya paints. Now, obviously, I've been using the paint mixer to do those, along with the research of Mike Starmer and Maffa, because they're kind of the resident experts on the subject. Because our records, we were much more regimented, actually, even than the Germans in our stuff. And our paint was, I think it's called PFU, Prepared Ready for Use, or RFU. So we supplied the paint to actually just put on the vehicles. So there wasn't much variation, actually, in the shades as applied to the vehicles. But it was also a bloody mess in terms of not very long periods of time between lots of changing things throughout the war. So I've approached it in a timeline way, because if you understand the timeline, it becomes much easier. So I've got those 2 videos coming, which also then gets me to talk about the paint mixer. So as of this point, as of last week, basically, we are no longer developing the Paint Mixer app as a standalone version. So, and people may be disappointed to hear that, but the reason is because we are going to an online version, because it solves a lot more problems than it raises questions. Now, it solves that problem of cross-platform, so it doesn't matter whether you are on PC, Linux, Apple, Android, iPhone, whatever. Obviously, you can access a website and a web server. So we're going to develop, all the future development will be on the online server. Now, the way that we will manage that is channel membership, Sprue Hire, gets you access to the Paint Mixer as part of the perks. That will be the easiest, cleanest way to manage it, because that way it ties directly in with membership. So then, if you sometime if you just want to join the channel just to use the Paint Mixer, you can do that. And you can just do it for just a single month if you want, and it's just $1.99 and that's it. And if you're a channel member anyway, then you just get access to it. So that's the way it'll be managed going forward. That will be through email. That's just the way we have to do it with the server. So we'll be going through that process in the coming weeks. I can't promise exactly when, because that's quite a large task, management task, admin task, and time is, as I've mentioned many times, is my most precious commodity. But that is the plan going forward. Now, that enables Casey to be much more focused on just the maintenance of all of the clever stuff, right? And not in producing different versions that then have to go out and then be deployed, and I don't have to put it on a web server, and then it has to be downloaded and installed and all that kind of stuff. So I think in the beta we were on, was it version 3 point something? We're now on 4.2.6, although I think that's going to shortly change to 0.7. Correct me if I'm wrong, Casey. And one of the big changes Casey's implemented is a new way to access targets. There's lots of changes actually. There's lots of improvements, so that basically you can just search for. In fact, why don't I show you? So Paul, the Paint Mixer will not be available for Android and Apple as a standalone thing, but you can access it on your phone, on your Android device or iPhone, through the web. So let me just go to the website and let me show you. So here is paint-mixer.com. You can go there. You won't be able to get in because you don't have a user password. But we will, let me just get rid of that. We will, as I say, organise that in the coming weeks. So exactly as before, you select your paint set. So for instance, I'm just going to go with ICM acrylics in volume ratio. So I am obviously in advanced mode, as I always tend to be. But if I go to Browse Catalog, click this, you can see this looks rather different than before. Before we just had a little drop down. Here instead I can say, if I'm looking for middle stone, just type in middle stone, and I get a whole bunch of options here. So I could either go A&A middle stone, I can go for the BS381C middle stone, I can go for the RAF map middle stone, or I can go for middle stones from various different manufacturers. So it basically allows you to, and each of these you can click on, it'll tell you where those references came from. So for instance, FS595 30266 middle stone, you can basically have two different versions of this. Now actually the discrepancy between them is minimal, but Completely up to you guys. So that's the way that this works now. You've also got spectral equivalents, so ones that with their D match through there. So it's a much easier way of finding things, just being able to search. If you know exactly what you're looking for, or you can narrow it down, of course. So United Kingdom, World War II, and I want Middlestone, if I could spell Middlestone, and there we go, RAF MAP Middlestone. So yeah, that's probably one of the big changes in the way it's used. So let me select that target. You have your target as normal, the CIE lab values, the spectra, and a couple of things that'll be different, I guess, for a lot of people is you only have two options here now. Best in daylight, which is the previous D65, so the ideal light. And then best overall, which tries to minimize metamerism, which is the color looking different in different lighting conditions. So if I go here, 3 paints in the mix, calculate mix, you'll see it then chug along on the progress bar. And there we go. We got a match in daylight of half a D. Got preview under different lighting. We do have a delta E of up to 1.38. The worst is in LED. If I click that, you can see how the things look different. The mix compared to the standard in different lighting conditions. So you can see there is a little bit of difference here in LED light. These are only representative, of course. 1.38 is pretty close anyway. And that's really where you've got these discrepancies in the spectra, right? So you can see clear orange, warm grey, and ochre will get you a really nice middle stone. So that's a lot of the changes right there. You can also do some nifty things. You can actually now copy this mix to be the target. So it's like, that's great. I want to now mix that with Tamiya colours. I can mix to my ICM mix. So say I want to touch up something that I painted with ICM paints, but I've only got Tamiya paints available. So I want to match to my ICM mix, not the sort of standard, as it were. And okay, now if I mix 2 parts of flat yellow, 2 parts of yellow brown, DAC 41, and 1 part of desert yellow, I should be able to touch up that paint, and it should be pretty much indistinguishable. So this is a nice little feature. I've used it. It was actually my request because it helps me in my paint mixing. You can also then actually save that as a target. So that's quite a handy feature as well for me. How useful it will be for other people, I'm not sure. And of course you have your manual LAB putting in there as well. So you also got this little brightness and darkness slider, so you can see you can match to lighter or darker colors, shades of the same color. And we also have 1/16 scale in the mixer as well, which we didn't have before. So lots of changes. Sorry, just looking back. Oh, and Casey confirmed 4.2.7 is the math update. In fact, if I refresh this and I go to advanced mode, no, it still says 4.2.6. Oh well. Anyway, that's where we are with the paint mixer, and how it ties into the videos that I'm doing. So Casey always says that I'm really good at finding oddities in the paint mixer. As soon as a new version comes out, I'll find some way to break it. So I just seem to have an innate knack to be drawn towards the should do 99.9% of things perfectly, and that 0.1 thing I'll find instantly. Oh, you haven't done it yet. Okay, that's why. So yeah, that'll go out and be live for general use in the coming weeks. For initially, it will be for channel members as a part of the extended beta test. So it'll be the beta test for the website, and then it will just be open. As I say, it'll still be for channel members because access to the paint mixer will be through channel membership. That's the easiest way to administer it. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. For those of you, I know people have been waiting. I've run out of 500ml bottles of the routine clean. I'm just waiting for a shipment. It's coming in tomorrow, actually. I've got a big bulk shipment of chemicals coming in. I was just short of a couple of things, some butyl diglycol for one. I'm still waiting for some documentation from HMRC before I can do the low odor thinner, because it contains industrial methylated spirits, or industrial. They don't call it IMS anymore. It's IDS, I think, industrial distilled spirits or something. I don't know why they bother with these small changes, but that's basically 99% alcohol, like ethanol, with 1% what they call wood naphtha, which is methanol. Basically, it means if you drink it, you go blind. But it still is controlled through the alcohol duties section of HMRC. So in order to be able to order it, you have to have certification. So I'm waiting for my certification. And apparently, even though I submitted it like 2 weeks ago, it's not scheduled till the 22nd of June to be reviewed, to do their stuff. But so those of you who pre-ordered low odor, please hang tight. As soon as that goes through, documentation gets sent off to the supplier, and they can actually supply me with the stuff that I've already paid for, and then that will all get sent out. Oh, and apparently Hugo Brock, the last Luftwaffe ace and Knight's Cross holder, has died. Wow. He must have been a fair old age. And New Zealand's last World War II fighter pilot died last month. Yeah, it is getting to that time now where, I mean, 2026, to have fought in World War II, say you'd lied about your age and you were 16, even saying at the end of the war, 16 in 45, that's still, so what, 16 in 40, well, so you were 15 in 45, so you'd be born in 30, so you'd be 95 or 96. So yeah, it's pushing it. Not many with that age, so most are going to be 100. So yeah. Chroma says GP fans' access to their eBay is a game changer. Being able to purchase Tamiya F1 1/20th kits unavailable in Europe for a fraction of what they cost in the UK. Yeah, I think the unavailable Japanese stuff for me is the big one. So yeah, you're right. The old 1/20th and 1/12th scale Formula One cars that they were discontinued, and they go for ridiculous prices on eBay in the UK. Hasegawa kits, Hasegawa and Fujimi LS as well, Nichimo, a lot of these suppliers that are around in the sort of 70s, 80s, 90s in Japan, obviously Hasegawa's still around, but Hasegawa's main production is still for Japan and the Far East market. So what comes abroad is a tiny fraction of their total output. Fujimi as well is really big, but most of its production stays in Japan. Aoshima a little bit more wide now. So even Tamiya, really, what comes to our shores is still a fraction of what's in Japan. So yeah, these rare kits, or rare as we see them, are much more available directly in Japan. So for me, the gold mine is that stuff rather than buying general kits. There may be some savings there. I don't know what those are. I've not really looked at that side of it. I was mainly interested in the sort of rare, niche, unusual sort of piece for that. A couple of other things I do have. Chroma, you very nicely reminded me there. So Chroma Fleet Yards have also been developing a range of accurate sci-fi paints. First that they're releasing, which I believe is going to be released imminently, is for Starfleet, so Star Trek models. They very kindly sent me a set of those paints, so I have a review on those coming out. I do actually have a Voyager, a Revell USS Voyager, so I can actually test those out on. And then I also have a set of markers, a metallic set and a standard set from a Chinese manufacturer, which I'm going to have a look at as well. I've not looked at any markers really. I've got some, like these AK ones. So I'm interested in what they're like compared to a brand like AK that we all know. But these are relatively expensive. I think these markers are a little bit overhyped. I think their use by Italeri in their beginner sets, their starter sets, is a really good idea, because I think, especially in tanks where you've got a fairly easy paint job, I guess in planes as well, for a starter I think they're more controllable when they perhaps don't have the control with a brush, but you get much less control with one of these than you do with a paintbrush. And there's other pieces about them as well. So I'm interested if there's a cheaper alternative that is decent quality, what that could potentially bring to the game, as it were. So lots going on aside from the other stuff that I still have outstanding. Yeah, you say they're very good, but I think they're very particular. I find a marker, everything a marker can do, I can do as good as or better with a brush. Now, that might just be my experience with brushes. I just don't see in my workflow there isn't a big gap for relatively expensive pens, which contain a fraction of the paint I can get in a paint bottle, and that's all I can do with it. I can't modulate that in any way. I can't mix it with anything. Yeah, it's just, again, another person's workflow. I hear good things about them, and it's fine. It works, but yeah, this for me will always trump that marker. So yeah, interesting one. Paul Dye comment: sci-fi paints, 10 shades of off-white? Question mark. So these are specifically color matched to actual, like they've got in touch with the franchises and color matched to the actual models used. So that's my understanding. And obviously I'll put a link and everything in when I do the review. But actually, Doug, I think that is one thing that I will agree with you completely on. So Doug Smith says, I use a mirror chrome pen. So there are pens by a company called Molotov. They do these mirror chrome pens. You've actually seen me use it. That's what I did the Stalwart in. But I used the refill and I airbrushed it, so I cheated anyway. But I do use the pens. They're really, really good for chrome. They get a chrome effect. I'm also really interested in the new Tamiya chrome paint. I haven't got any yet. I will be getting it. I will be getting it in for the shop. I will be testing that because that looks amazing. I've heard it's really expensive. I've not seen the prices yet, but yeah, I will see. Let me have a little look. Yeah, so John. So Paul says, I don't have the full set, but there's 4 or 5 I use on every model, mainly for touch-up. Yeah, I can see the use for them. It's just, and this is one of the great things about the hobby, right? Is you can have something like this, and you know, some people think it's a great idea. Some people, like me, are just like, it doesn't. There isn't a pen-shaped gap in my. There isn't something where I was thinking, you know what I really could do with is something I could just do this with. It's like, yeah. So I think it's great that some people find use for these, and as I say, I think for beginners, for starters, including these in a starter set is a fantastic. I think that's a kind of game changer idea, because these don't dry out in the way that a little paint pot does. They have utility after the beginner stroke starter has graduated, if you like, from the first few kits. You know, they get them used to using acrylics and in a format which is more manageable for them before they get to using a brush and stuff. So I think for that they're quite. I think that's a really good niche for them. Let's say. Molotov is incredibly good. It's my go-to for chrome. Yeah, pens are useful for making chrome details on cars like the windows, borders. Yeah, and also for touching up parts on like bike kits where you have to cut the chrome parts off and you just want to touch up that. They are a game changer for sure. I have them in the shop. They sell out really quickly. So yeah. Okay. Seam checking. Yeah, I can see that. Again, I think it's one of those Marmite things. For those of you who don't know what Marmite is, like Vegemite in Australia. It's one of those things you either love it or hate it, right? There's very few people who are just like, I can take it or leave it. I love Marmite. This is like, it's, yeah, it's okay. But I guess it depends, you know. As always, the great answer is it depends, right? Right. Thank you all for joining me tonight. It is coming up to 10 o'clock, 21:59. As I said, tonight was very much, I didn't have any agenda or a particular idea for this. I just wanted to give people a bit of an update, talk a little bit about those Airfix kits. I think us doing a DB5 group build as a possibility, I think, you know, that's great. I'll cogitate on that a little bit, and I'll put something up as a post tomorrow. Yeah, it will be tomorrow because Friday I'm really busy. Otherwise, thanks for joining me, guys. It's been great to get back into the saddle, as it were. Watch this space. There'll be, as I say, a fair few videos coming out in the near future. And if you're around on Friday, Scale Modelling Live, I should be back by then. I've got to take Maria to the airport, but other than that, I think I'm good to go. So, look forward to seeing you then. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much. See you next time. Cheers, guys.